This husky wasn't thirsty at all, yet he hogged the only water source. Whenever another dog dared to get close, he'd snarl viciously and chase them off. The other dogs were angry but didn't dare make a sound. They could only lower their heads in silence. After all, he was the lead dog of the sled team, and he used his status to constantly bully his teammates. But the new big guy was a different story. He walked right up to the husky and effortlessly smashed open a hole in the ice. All the dogs rushed over when they saw this, and the big guy warmly welcomed everyone to share the same water source. Witnessing all this, the husky showed no remorse. Instead, he became even more arrogant toward his teammates. He thought that as long as he ran fast enough, his owner would always favor him. But what he didn't know was that the most important thing for a lead dog is winning hearts that day. The woman was scouting ahead when suddenly the ice cracked beneath her. The next second, she plunged straight into the freezing lake. Mike saw it happen and rushed over. But the woman's strength was fading. She could barely hold on. She was quickly swept away by the rushing water. At that critical moment, Buck shot past Mike like lightning and dove into the water without hesitation. In the darkness, carried the woman on his back, then used his body to ram against the ice. With all his might, finally Buck managed to save her, but by then, he was completely exhausted and had no strength left to climb up. Soon enough, Buck couldn't hold on any longer. His body sank helplessly into the darkness. Mike paced anxiously on the ice, shouting Buck's name over and over. He quickly found the right spot, then pulled out his knife and hammered away at the ice. But the ice was too thick. After a few strikes, the blade snapped. Mike collapsed to his knees in anguish. I could never imagine that this dog, who only seemed to slow them down, would risk his life to save his wife. Just then, someone handed him a stick. Without thinking, Mike grabbed it and started breaking the ice again. But suddenly, he seemed to realize something when he turned around. It was the drowning Buck who had passed him the stick. Seeing this heartwarming moment between him and his owner, the husky's ears shot up in fury. Even the woman who used to dislike Buck started trusting him now. She even gave him an extra chicken leg. Unfortunately, the husky saw all of this too. He knew it was time to settle things once and for all. So that night, right after Buck had saved a rabbit and before it could even hop away, the husky killed it. Then he looked at Buck defiantly. He had no idea how fierce his expression looked right then, and how quickly it would turn embarrassing. Then he slowly approached Buck. Buck had never seen anything like this before, and was too scared to move. But a sled team can't have two lead dogs. The husky lunged at him viciously, even though Buck was twice his size. His pampered life in the mansion had dulled his wild instincts. After just a few hits, he was knocked down and couldn't get back up. The husky made some taunting gestures over Buck's unconscious body, then walked toward the pack, trying to win their support. But the dogs would rather walk away than return to the husky's side. They kept barking at Buck, hoping he'd pull himself together. Unexpectedly, the next second, Buck bared his fangs and stood up. The wildness inside him had fully awakened. His fierce appearance scared the husky out of his wits. But to save face in front of the pack, he had no choice but to charge forward. Buck was no longer timid now. He stood firm, waiting for the right moment with a quick sidestep. He successfully clamped his jaws around the husky's neck. Then Buck tossed the husky high into the air like a child. Finally, Buck pinned the husky firmly to the ground with his paw, seeing the other dogs barely able to contain their cheers. The husky knew he'd lost so under the gaze of all the dogs. He tucked his tail between his legs and slunk away in defeat. This was the hardest interview in history, where candidates were left absolutely stunned the moment they entered the room, because the test paper in front of them was completely blank, not a single word written on it. The atmosphere was heavy with tension, because the examiner had laid down 3 iron rules before leaving. Rule 1, do not spoil or mark your paper. Rule 2, do not speak to the guard. And Rule 3, do not leave the room for any reason, or you will be disqualified immediately. He left them with a riddle, saying there is only one question and one answer, and started the 80-minute countdown. As the examiner left, panic set in. One woman, thinking this was a psychological test to write a self-assessment, put her pen to the paper, but the moment she wrote just one word, the guard rushed in and dragged her out without mercy, because she had broken the first rule by marking the paper. Seeing this terrifying scene, the others froze, but a cunning man named White found a loophole. He smiled and said, "The rules say we can't talk to the guard. It doesn't say we can't talk to each other." Realizing this, chaos erupted as they brainstormed how to reveal the hidden question, thinking it might be photosensitive ink. They smashed the room lights to use the emergency lights, UV and infrared spectrums, but the paper remained blank. Desperation drove them to extreme measures. Using sweat and even other fluids to wet the paper, hoping words would appear, nothing worked okay. "Now can we please get off the lighting?" The stakes were raised. When they realized this wasn't just a job interview, it was for a pharmaceutical company that created the cure for a deadly virus pandemic. The winner would get the life-saving drug for free. It was now a game of survival. One girl stole a lighter from the hoping heat would reveal the text. But the ruthless White tricked her, swapping her paper so she burned her own test, getting her eliminated instantly. How could you, bastard? You said we should cooperate until we discover the question. As time ticked away, White began suffering a seizure and needed the drug desperately. When no one helped, he snapped. Stealing the guard's gun, he didn't know it was bio-locked. So he forced the guard's finger onto the trigger and at gunpoint, forced the other candidates to leave the room, one by one believing he was the last one standing. He shouted to the examiner. I won, but the guard threw him out because the time hadn't actually run out. A quiet candidate with glasses had secretly set the clock forward to trick him. In the end, the last remaining girl picked up a pair of glasses and a shard of broken glass from the floor. Using them as a makeshift magnifying glass, she scanned the paper and finally found microscopic text reading. Question 1, do you have any questions? She realized the examiner had asked this verbally at the very start. Any questions? She looked at the two-way mirror, smiled, and simply answered no, providing the correct answer that won her the job and her life.